Hi everybody, welcome back to one of my late night streams. And tonight we are doing U-boat again together. Yeah, let me give you a brief intro about the game and my situation. So, as you already might have guessed, this is a Second World War submarine simulation. We slip into the role of a German submarine commander, and we dive into a wonderful open world where you are just free to go, virtually everywhere. So the whole world, not quite actually, the Pacific is not fully rolled out, but all the rest of the world is actually modeled. And as I said, you could just go anywhere. The coasts are beautifully modeled in detail. All of the depths of the sea bottom is modeled just everywhere. And nevertheless, of course, it's much recommended that you not just go where you like, but go where your seniors want you to go. And this is actually the simulation. You are really slipping into the life. You can start at the very beginning of the war, and this is what I actually did. So this stream is a full campaign, having started in September 39, at the eve of the Second World War. And you see that by now we have progressed something like 3.5 years into the war. It's mid-May 1943. And the game is very dynamic. The abilities of the Allies really develop, change over time. New ships come up and new tactics, new weapons, which make your life harder. And at the same time, for me, back then I decided to start with a small Type 2 submarine and to earn my merits to finally being promoted to the Type 7. In the course of our career, we sank a lot of tonnage. When France was taken, we moved our home port to the port of La Rochelle. From there, we had better access to the Atlantic hunting ground, so we extended our missions to the mid of the Atlantic and finally got the milk cow available from headquarters, so we could position milk cows all over the world, and particularly here we did put them here. What for? The milk cows are actually something like mobile refueling stations and rearming, restocking stations. So it's bulky submarines, and they wait there for us, and we can order them in via radio and get new torpedoes, new fuel, and new food and equipment. So this was then the only way that we could actually access the western coast of the Atlantic, by being able to refuel halfway to there. And then we did successfully finish Operation Drumbeat. We did successfully finish the attack on Aruba, and then decided to go back to Europe, and we changed our home port to Bergen. From here, from the port of Bergen, we started the Arctic Convoys mission set, which is about to intercept convoys which at that time of the war started to go for the Soviet Union, for Murmansk, to give support, supplies, backup for the Eastern Front against the Germans. And so our job was to sink as many of these supplying merchantmen as possible. So now, since a while, we were, you see that we already did quite successfully sink 126,000 tons, so we reached the first 2 levels already. But now, since a while, we were pretty luckless, I would say. Our luck ran out a bit, because on the one hand, for a long time we didn't run into just any convoy, and then the first one we ran into was so heavily guarded that we were just happy that we got away with our lives. And yeah, what is it about now? So we had been patrolling our mission area here, and usually there is a certain length of path that you need to travel in the patrol area. Then you can turn back home, and this we already did. But this optional target to sink 10,000 tons, as you see, we didn't sink a single ship in this mission, and so as we still have plenty of fuel, I decided to do a little trip to the north and see that if we get some better booty and some better convoys there to attack. So guys, please, fingers crossed everybody, that we might run into a not so well defended convoy up here. What I also did, I ordered a supply submarine to be stationed here, but this still takes 11 days until it will arrive there, so maybe not yet relevant for this mission. So time of the day, it's early morning, but as we are so far in the north and it's mid-May, the nights never become completely dark. Although, didn't mention that, I'm playing with almost maximum difficulty level, so I have really dark nights when the season and the boundary conditions are like that. But like here in the north now, we are closing in for the summer, which means that the nights become brighter and brighter at the moment. If we look at the crew, we actually have lost one guy. So we had an air raid, and in this air raid we got quite a beating. So one of our gun crew guys went overboard during the attack and drowned. So that means, if we look at the crew, we now have one sailor missing. And that's a pity. I already was complaining about that in the last stream. That sailor just vanishes out of the roster. And so it would be nice to actually see some kind of Hall of Fame. But I think there is no something like that. The only thing that we can do is we still have the squad roster, and so the guy must be still in the roster, and that usually gives some problem. So maybe later we are gonna take a look at the squad roster and find out who the guy actually was who went overboard and drop him out of the roster. That's a bit of boring work to do, so let's do that later. And now just dive into the game for now. What about... discipline is deteriorating because fatigue is pretty high. We haven't granted shore leave for the crew since quite a while, so we already did several missions, and maybe after this mission I would have to grant shore leave to the crew to get rid of the fatigue, which is really having influence now on the moral, on the discipline. I can't even counter it with supplying better or a larger variety of food. So let's make sure that we have all the necessary food in the galley. Yeah, we have 3 different types of food, which actually helps to keep the crew a bit more happy. But when you offer different types of food, the overall burn rate really drops. So we used, as it looks like, we have used 4 spare parts. Now we have used much more spare parts actually, after we have gotten serious damage by this plane. But yeah, we got away. Only one of our sailors went overboard, as I said. We could repair the damage, but we used a lot of spare parts. But yeah, the crew is here, the officers still have sufficient spare parts. Mr. Grader, he's our chief engineer, he's carrying 5 spare parts. Mr. Ahl is our first mechanic, the same, and Mr. Schneider, second mechanic. So we have in total 15 spare parts with the officers and 1 still in the storage room. Yeah, that's it so far. Let's take a look. No, don't, please, Mr. Schneider, just do your ordinary job. Yeah, we only have a few drops of water in the bilge, nothing to worry about. And yeah, it's a bit of a routine now. So we are sailing roughly northeastern course and going for, let's see, something like every 6 or every 8 hours, doing a hydrophone check. Let's go. Well, by the way, Mr. Schulz, please take a look at the map to improve our navigation correctness. And yeah, as usual, let me save at the beginning of each stream. And let's carry on. Yeah, I'm not playing it hardcore. There are a few streamers who play this game like real instant death, no reload, but this is not quite what I do. When I lose the boat completely, I really do a reload. Only when I have some kind of minor losses, like for example this sailor. I think a lot of people would probably have reloaded an old status and tried again not to lose the sailor, but this is what I want to take into account, to really have losses now and then. And yeah, not to reload just because a torpedo missed or something. Let's go. So the weather is not that good. We have 25 knots of wind speed by now. 8 o'clock in the morning and 8th thunderstorm going on. That looks a bit like snow so far in the north. Yep. So although it's already mid-May, it's still pretty cold. And yeah, we do have quite some swell going. And like I used to mention now and then, I really love how they implement the graphics. I mean, To me, this feels pretty realistic. Like the bow is cutting through the waves and the spray is going high up. The movement of the boat. The only thing that I think could be a bit more realistic is that I think in real life the boat would do much more tilting to the left and the right, depending on the direction of the waves. So this at the moment doesn't make any difference. I think the direction of the wind and the waves doesn't have any influence on the gameplay, on the movement of the boat, but let's see. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I misinterpreted it, but I hope that we will get something with the next update, which will be there in a bit more than a month. Yeah, we are all eagerly expecting this next update because it will contain additionally a new type of submarine, the Type 9. Yeah, it's scheduled for April, 17th of April actually. Let's carry on. Tough weather and change of watch at 10 o'clock.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Yeah, so now let's do something like, now it's 8 hours. Let's do another hydrophone check.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
So, hydrophone check, what does it mean? We are gonna order hydrophone check, which is some kind of a standard workflow, and the crew exactly knows what to do. We don't have to do much micromanagement. Yeah, the crew will bring the boat down to 50 meters, and down there we will have an enormous hydrophone range. So while on the surface we have just a very limited view, down there the sensors, the hydrophone gives us an enormous detection range, so we would be able to detect any moving propeller in an enormous radius. So the valves being opened, ballast tanks being flooded, the depth steers being manned, and down we go. And yeah, now the crew levels the boat towards 50 meters and stops the engines then. And then we are going to do 5 minutes of thorough hydrophone listening, and finally, after these 5 minutes, the crew will bring the boat back to the surface. I pretty much love that you don't have to do all the micromanagement, but can let the crew do these things. This makes it feel pretty realistic to me.
40 Meter.
Like it would probably be as a captain, as a commander, to be precise. Okay.
50 Meter.
There we are. And yeah, I think they already stopped the engines. Yes. And here we are. I also love how it looks. Yeah, these outside views underwater I also pretty much love.
45 Meter.
And now here. Yeah, the wind speed has gone down again and the weather has improved, so we should have more or less the maximum radius, detection radius of 90 miles. Yeah, we have. So within this enormous radius we should be able to detect just any moving propeller.
Meter.
Yeah, I mentioned that we tried to infiltrate a convoy, but yeah, actually, that merchant convoy was accompanied by an enormous number of escorts, and it was even a military task force. That there was a big, not quite sure whether it was a battleship or a cruiser. So they are really taking some effort by now to make sure that their convoys are well protected. Yeah, so we tried to infiltrate that convoy. We put ourselves right in front of it, and then got detected. And just before diving away, we fired 3 torpedoes on 1 merchantman, but the distance was too far and everything was a little bit head over heels, so none of these torpedoes actually homed in for the target. So at the moment, if we look at we have already fired 3 torpedoes, but we're not successful with any of them. And at the moment, what is happening here, Mr. Schneider, he's just doing the routine maintenance on the torpedoes, which is one of his main jobs. So by the way, now let's take a look at the crew. So who is in the first shift? Vogel, Oertel, Reitenbach, Otto. Vogel, Oertel, Reitenbach, Otto. Luther, Schwarz, Lindemann, Seifert. Luther, Schwarz, Lindemann. Pretty much looks like Lindemann is the guy who went overboard. Oh no. Can't be. Luther, Schwarz, Seifert. Luther, Schwarz, Seifert. Alright. Strauss, Hornickel, Blume, Bucher. Strauss, Hornickel, Blume, Bucher. And so here we have Mr. Helmig. Maybe he was the guy who went overboard. I guess so. Sommer, Sparfeld. And then Rossmann, Weber, Vogel, Lawrence. Rossmann, Weber, Vogel, Lawrence, Forstmann, Lindemann. Forstmann, Lindemann. And yeah, Lindemann is there. So the guy we lost is Mr. Helmig. Let's check it once more, but I think we don't have Mr. Helmig with us again. Let's check. Yeah, Mr. Helmig is missing in the roster. These are actually pilots, so we were also successful in shooting down planes later on. So we have 8 prisoners of war with us. Well, prisoners, we actually saved them from drowning. Yeah, so we have to remove Mr. Helmig from the roster. 1 guy less. But I think there is no any way to later see the deceased sailors over the whole game, which is a pity. Now there we are back to the surface, and obviously no hydrophone contacts. So maybe the captain should do a little bit of playing cards with the crew to improve the morale.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen. Natürlich, Herr Kaloi.
10 o'clock, but we will see that is still pretty bright. Yeah, the sun has set, but the sun is just closely underneath the horizon and still sheds a lot of light. And here we go for another hydrophone check.
Tauchen auf 50 Meter.
Yeah, you see all the crew, or the off-watch crew, running to the front compartment. Mr. Arles, in this case, opening the valves. Two crewmates, Mr. Sparfeld, Mr. Sommer, manning the depth charges. And yeah, there you see the crew being assembled in the front compartment, giving additional diving ballast. And while the ballast tanks are being flooded, and down we go.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter.
Auf E-Motoren wechseln.
And this is what I love about the game, that it doesn't feel like you are controlling a machine directly, like it is in many simulations, but in this game you really get that feeling that you are commanding a
20
crew
Meter.
and not just pressing buttons of a machine. You are commanding a crew and they carry out your orders. And yeah, one result is that things take time. There is work to be done to get the submarine diving, and you can really see all the crew doing their jobs. All right,
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
more hydrophone check.
Torpedorohr 4 gewartet.
50 Meter.
Torpedorohr 5 gewartet.
Yeah, 5 minutes of hydrophone checking.
45 Meter. Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
Yeah, there are two offices which are not yet completely leveled to the max. It's our second radio man, Mr. Strauss, and our bosun, Mr. Schultz. I actually had experienced bosun and experienced second radio man, which were completely maxed out in terms of level and skills, and so I decided to take two of the crew out and replace them by unexperienced officers to give them the opportunity to learn, so that later in the war, if things get really tough, I might have some backup experienced officers to fill up casualties, not with rookie officers. But
Herr Kaloi?
no contact.
10 Meter.
And there we come back to the surface.
Auf Dieselmotoren wechseln.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? That process of diving, that process of surfacing. I pretty much love it. So at least now we are regaining a bit of discipline, because the captain socializing with the crew gives quite a bit of moral discipline back to counteract this high level of fatigue that the crew has due to lack of shore leave.
Torpedorohr 3 gewartet.
Now let's go for another 4 hours. Here we are. It's 2 o'clock and we already have sunrise. Yeah, we are getting further and further to the north. Have we? Yeah, we can't see because the sky is overcast, but there the sun is already up. And yeah, consider it is 2 o'clock in the night. So maybe we are not too far away from midnight sun. Yeah, the weather is not perfect.
Benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Let's carry on one more watch and then we are going to do the next hydrophone check. So 6 o'clock in the morning.
Navigation besetzen.
So please give me another hydrophone check, guys. And there again you see, I love that animation, the off-watch crew running to the front compartment. And the crew guys manning the depth steers. In this case now Mr. Grade, our chief engineer, opening the valves to flood the bell stacks, which is also nicely animated in the game. This cross-section view is so great. I mean, this interactive cross-section view, I think this is the first and only submarine simulation who does it like that. And if you ask me, that's a wonderfully great idea.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter.
Auf E-Motorenwechsel.
So the crew brings the boat down again to 50 meters and does the 5 minutes of hydrophone check down there. All in the standard hydrophone check workflow.
25 Meter.
Okay, this coughing always makes me a bit nervous. You never know. Hope that nobody has caught.
Aktuelle Tiefe 40
Tuberculosis, actually. This can happen. There are a few rare events now and then. And yeah, one of the crewmates becoming infected with tuberculosis is one of the
50 Meter.
events that you get. But, well, what I would kind of think, if you have sickness like tuberculosis, I think it's pretty contagious. So maybe it would be realistic if you would have to get back to port as soon as possible, or that sickness would spread amongst
Meter.
your whole crew. But this is actually not yet implemented. So I mean, it would be realistic if you would have to abort your mission ASAP when you have such a highly contagious disease on board.
50 Meter.
Well, just a bit of water. Also one of these beautiful features of the game, that you have this effect of water just very silently sneaking into the boat, seeping through gaskets, or coming in through the main hatchet when it's open, when you're surfaced and it's bad weather. You again and again collect a little bit of water in the bilge, which is no critical leak, but yeah. And when you dive, this silent leakage rate becomes more and more the deeper you go and the faster you go, because I think down underwater the main reason for water seeping in is the drive shaft gaskets. Drive shaft is quite some technical challenge to keep it tight, and yeah, kind of a dynamic gasket, and yeah, nobody would succeed to keep it completely tight. So when you go deep and when you go fast down deep, you accumulate quite a bit of water coming just in through, seeping through this gasket without having any actual leak.
Ja?
I wanted to check that. So we were ordered to do a mission here in that area of AM. And it's not. It's, at least, I mean, in real life, it for sure these quadrants were part of these Nordic convoys, but in the game they are obviously not. So only tonnage that you sink in these quadrants here will actually be accounted for the Arctic convoys. Alright, give it a bit of acceleration, and there we are, back to the surface.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
No any contact. Time acceleration again.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
And please, Captain, do a bit of playing cards again. Yeah, this actually gives back now a bit of discipline. But just for that short time period. How long the captain is actually playing cards with these guys.
Torpedorohr 5 gewartet.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
2 o'clock in the afternoon. Fairly good weather. Okay, now it's a storm has been coming up. It's 24 knots of wind speed. It's thunderstorm. So this will
Hier etwas unterstützen.
considerably reduce our hydrophone range down there. Yeah, thunder and lightning.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
Navigation besetzen.
Yeah, also nice that when the weather is that bad, you actually see them with, yeah, this other clothing up there. With raincoats and everything. So, give us another hydrophone check. 50 meters. Yeah, it always takes a little while to flood the tanks and get the boat down.
Torpedorohr 1 gewartet.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5
Auf
Meter.
E-Motoren wechseln.
And there we go.
Ja? Meter.
Okay, good evening, guys. I see the number of watches going up. So don't feel observed. I don't see names or something. I just see the number of watches going up, and that's great. So welcome and thanks for joining. Yeah, perfectly fine if you just lurk. But of course, you would make a little streamer like me a little bit more happy if you participate in the chat. If it's just giving me a hi or telling me what experience you have with the game, what you think about the game, about the stream. Or maybe even tell me where you're from, what's your continent, because this is something that I love the most about streaming, this opportunity to get in contact with people who are a continent away, or maybe even several. But yeah, don't feel pushed. Perfectly fine if you just lurk. If you don't feel in the mood for conversation, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, here now we see that in this bad weather, thunderstorm, wind speed going high up, we have considerably reduced hydrophone range. Wow, down to 25 miles of radius, while in fine weather it would be 90 miles of radius. But kind of realistic, all that noise, the waves, the wind, the thunder, gives us a terrible background against which we would have much more problems to actually distinguish and figure out propeller noises.
Herr Kaloy?
So 5 minutes,
Anblasen.
and there we go, back to the surface. No contacts.
Auf Dieselmotoren wechseln.
Herr Kaloy, wir sind aufgetaucht.
Kurs setzen.
The question is how far we would actually want to go north and east before we return back home. In terms of fuel, yeah, we have been doing some circling around here, so if we turn back when we are half fuel, we still have lots of backup, lots of margin. Yeah, come on, let's keep the save now and then. Yeah, as I said, I'm not one of these hardcore guys who just never reload and start a completely new campaign whenever they die. This is not what I do. When I lose the complete boat, I will actually reload an earlier save, but when I lose just a few crewmates or maybe even an officer or miss a few torpedoes, this is what I would just take and wouldn't reload an older save. So I try to do it something like in between, keeping it kind of realistic, allowing a certain amount of losses and unsuccessful attacks, but if I actually die, if I lose the boat, I'm gonna reload. Luckily, this doesn't happen too often.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
Yeah, welcome. I see more people in the stream. As I used to say, don't feel observed. I just see the number, I don't see your names. And if you just want to lurk silently, that's perfectly fine.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Yeah, the captain has to turn in sooner or later. Yeah, discipline is still below 80%. Hey, it's midnight. We have midnight sun. It's 13 minutes past midnight. Yeah, okay, now we finally have the midnight sun. It's just 12:15, or 12:15 midnight, and we have the sun up there. That's beautiful. And it's only May. We are not even in the middle of the summer yet. Yeah, I love that. See the sun. To see the sun in the north, that's pretty fascinating. And beautiful that all these kind of changes with season, changes with over daytime, that all that is so nicely implemented in the game, giving us a wonderful scenario, a wonderful open world, wonderful stage to have our adventures in. Let's go for another 2 hours and then we are gonna do the next hydrophone check.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung. Wird erledigt, Herr Kaloi.
Tauchen auf 50 Meter.
Again, all the off-watch crew running to the front compartment. Yeah, these little details. I love it. How they actually show you that the crew is actually following your orders and making the boat do what you wanted to do. Did somebody already open the valves? Yeah, the ballast tanks are flooded. By the way, before we forget it,
Aktuelle Tiefe?
just a bit of water in the bilge, completely uncritical still.
Wie lauten Ihre Befehle, Herr
So
Kaloi?
Mr. Hinrich at the hydrophone, he has Mr. Ertler to support him, which gives another 25% of range. And
25 Meter.
yeah, down there at 50 meters in the silence of the depth, we will have the enormous detection range of the hydrophone. And And as the weather is pretty quiet, we just have 5 knots of wind speed.
40 Meter.
Good weather, so we should finally get a detection range of up to 90 miles of radius, so that we would detect just any propeller within this radius.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle. 50 Meter.
Yeah, there we are. There we are.
Aktuelle Tiefe 45 Meter.
45 meters.
Auf Februar 4 gewartet.
Come on. Fingers crossed that we get some contacts. But yeah, this is also such a nice feature about the game. There are no scripted encounters or something, but there is real fairways, real trade routes of the convoys, and real convoys moving along the map in the background. And you have to find them. You don't know where they are, and you have to find them. It's not kind of a random encounter thingy, but there is real convoys moving on the map, and we have to track them down with constant hydrophone checks. And yeah, some people might find that a bit tiring. And yeah, it's no arcade game. It's, for me, actually, this is what gives me the immersion. This real high level of realism, and I would call this the best U-boat simulation
Aktuelle Tiefe
we ever had.
45 Meter.
Except for those to come. Yeah. Anybody has been reading Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy, where this computer, Deep Thought, they constructed it, they turned it on, and then these two scientists tell him, oh, Deep Thought, you are the smartest computer ever being built. And then he says, no, that's wrong. And they are very pissed off because they are so proud having constructed that computer. And then he says, well, there will be one coming after me, and he will be even smarter. So, yeah, what I just want to say is, of course, computer games become better and better in principle. But that does not automatically imply that new computer games are better than the older ones, but this one here definitely is. Here the crew, off-watch crew, just taking their rest. The engines have been stopped. Yeah, we do not do silent running. I wonder what would happen if I would even increase. Let's see. Never tried that actually. What happens if I do order silent running? Would we get even a larger range? So at the moment the range is 94 miles of radius. And now what happens if I order the crew to do silent running? I mean, the engines are turned off already. The dive planes are on manual. The gyro compass is off. The blue light indicating the crew to be particularly silent. Let's see. Okay, no. Doesn't make a difference. Would have been nice to see that it would make a little difference. So guys, we can go. Yeah, stop silent running. Hey, not wet, just cold. Yeah. I wouldn't call it a shame. I would call it a pity. Let me put it like that.
20 Meter.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a surprise because there is so many little details featured into the game. So I wouldn't have been surprised to see also this having an effect. By the way, good evening, not wet, just cold. I hope you're fine. Did you have a good weekend? So let's turn on the gyro again. Let's put the dive planes to electric again.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Far too quickly, yeah, as usual. I could just say the same, yep. Yeah, we only came back from my hometown this afternoon. Something like 4 o'clock we were back here. So it was a nice quiet afternoon then. Let's carry on. And so, Mr. Schultz, our bosun, please care for the navigation.
Unterstützung.
And I want to have the captain playing cards again to at least slow down the decay of discipline. We just somehow have to get the crew back with fairly okayish discipline, and I think when I'm going to return to port after this mission, we will have to grant the crew 3 or 4 weeks of shore leave. Let's go for another 4 hours and then do another hydrophone check. So it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Yeah. Yeah, at the moment I'm doing hydrophone checks every 8 hours, something like that. Yeah, and hi guys, I see slowly but constantly the number of watches is going up. That's just beautiful to see. So don't worry, I don't see your names or something. Just see the numbers as long as you don't participate in the chat, which is perfectly fine. Don't hesitate to just lurk if you like to, but let me also mention that I'm doing the streaming pretty much for the conversation, so you could make a little streamer like me a little bit more happy if you drop me a hi in the chat or share your opinion about the game, about the stream. And there we are.
Wie lauten Ihre Befehle, Herr?
Hydrophone checking. But yeah, as I used to say, don't feel pushed. If you just feel to lurk, perfectly fine. always glad to see a few people being interested in what I do here. Going down. Isn't this beautiful? This view. Now engine stopped. And we get the maximum detection range
50 Meter.
from the hydrophone check. Mr. Strauss being assisted by Mr. Vogel from the crew. Yep, enormous range. Yeah, fingers crossed again.
45 Meter.
Let's hope that we get some contact. Yeah, the Arctic Convoys area stretches pretty far to the east from here. So it is AB, AC. Yeah, AB is this area, and AC being all this area here.
50 Meter.
So at the moment we are cruising through AC. But nothing around, no single. Sounds like, again, not a single moving propeller in this radius of 90 miles.
Herr Kaloin?
5 minutes, and the crew brings the boat back to the surface.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
On we go, pacing through the seas, endless waters of the Arctic. Discipline is going up again a bit due to the captain socializing with the crew. At least we're not molested by airplanes anymore.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Bestätige.
könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Navigation besetzen.
So please, next hydrophone check.
Laufen auf 50 Meter.
Yeah, so yesterday I didn't stream because I was on a birthday party of a very dear old school friend of mine, and that's why yesterday at around lunchtime we went by car to my hometown. And yeah, my wife and me, we took the way.
5
It's just about 2 hours of drive, and we were so lucky that there were no traffic jams or something. So that was easy peasy, and so we spent the afternoon with my mother and my aunt.
25 Meter.
And in the evening, it was just a foot walk of something like 5 minutes. So the place of my mother is just 5 minutes foot walk away from the place of my friend. And yeah, it actually became pretty late. I think we went back home at 3 o'clock.
40 Meter.
Yeah, so it was a very nice evening. Weight loss. Great to have you in. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Just mentioned that I didn't stream yesterday,
50 Meter.
so I felt very much obliged to actually do UBOAT tonight. Although the Sunday night is not one of my regulars.
Wie lauten Ihre Befehle, Herr Kaloi? 45 Meter.
Yeah, let's accelerate a bit.
50 Meter.
Torpedorohr 2 gewartet.
But still, no contacts.
Anblasen.
Meter.
Torpedorohr 1 gewartet.
Aktuelle Tiefe 20 Meter.
Yeah, I pretty much like this
Auf
view.
Dieselmotoren wechseln.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
Discipline almost 80% again. And what about the fuel? 60%. So we could still venture on a bit further to the east, actually.
Kurs setzen. Kurs setzen.
Not quite sure where they would put these convoys. Keep closer to the coast, or trying to be as far as possible away from the coast. I mean, this is the Norwegian coast and it's occupied by Germans, a bit of, yeah, Finland. What was it about Finland in the Second World War? I think they somehow, well, if you look at the map, I think for Sweden and Finland they pretended to be something like neutral. But I think in reality the Norwegians kind of were a bit pissed off how Sweden behaved in the Second World War, because if I remember right, the Swedish were, well, not very given much opposition to the Germans. Haha, Star Wars weekend, yeah. The X-Wing and the TIE Fighter games, okay? So you would recommend them? They are old ones, aren't they? That's nothing new. That's some old school games, isn't it? That you're referring to? Yeah. I remember that many years ago I had been playing. But that's really long time ago I had been playing one of these Star Wars games, and yeah, you had wonderful kind of space fleet battles, and yeah, these capital ships had really, that was pretty new back then, that you had different sections in the capital ships which you could destroy to enable certain abilities. Yeah, if you would stream that, I would be curious to look at it. Yeah, amazing. I would be curious how it looks like if it's pimped with decent mods.
Navigation besetzen.
Yeah, let's travel on a bit further. So, 10 o'clock in the evening. And the sun being there. But as we learned already now, in mid-May, the sun would not completely drop underneath the horizon anymore, not even at midnight.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Betrachten Sie es als erledigt, Herr Kaloy.
12 o'clock.
Torpedorohr
There
2
we are,
gewartet.
just a few minutes before midnight, and there the sun is still well above the horizon. That's the midnight sun that we see here. Hi guys, by the way. Again, I see the number of watches going up. It's a pleasure to have you in. Good evening. I hope you're all fine, and don't worry, I just don't see your names, I just see the number going up. So don't feel obliged to do anything. Lurking is perfectly fine, but hey, great. So aqua icing, yeah, thanks. Let's see. So at the moment, not much about hunting, because there are no victims. And Josh, nice to have you in as well. So, how are you doing, Josh? Aqua icing. Did you have a good weekend? Always happy to have you in the stream. knots of wind speed, that's not too much. My gut feeling now was that we do have a relatively large swell, if you consider that it's only 8 knots of wind speed. Yeah, my weekend was great, so you might have seen that I didn't stream yesterday night. That's because my wife and me, we went back to my hometown, and yeah, we stayed at the place of my mother and went to a good, dear old school friend of mine who was celebrating his birthday. And there were a few more, so that was just great. Meeting a few guys which I know since a very long time. Over all the years, I would call them really my best friends. Well, them and their wives, and so it was a very nice evening. It became pretty late. We just went back home, well, to my mother's place at 3 o'clock, but the lucky thing is that my friend's place is just 5 minutes of walk away from my mother's place. Yeah, well, it was just one bad message that I got in the evening. One of my school friends there. So, well, I know that guy since, I don't know, since I'm 6 years old or something. And yeah, he just told me that he's just about to split with his wife, which I would never have expected. Yeah, another 2 hours. And yeah, and then
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
next hydrophone check. Captain, please take the time to socialize a bit with the crew.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
And
Etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
so, guys,
Auf 50
give us
Meter.
the next hydrophone check. Yeah, all the crew running a forward again. Off-watch crew. Here, Mr. Strauss has just opened the valves, which means that by now seawater is rushing into the tanks, into the ballast tanks. You see here the depth steers showing downwards, and so soon we should be diving. There we are. Yeah, maybe after that dive we should turn on the pump once briefly. Hi, Captain Jimbo, great to have you in. Well, I'm not quite sure which of my last streams you were actually watching. I think you were in on all of them. So 2 streams ago we actually had this, going into a convoy, infiltrating the convoy, but that infiltration of the convoy was not quite successful. There was an enormous number of escort ships, and yeah, there was even a little military task force with battleships or cruisers accompanying that convoy. And so I just barely was able to fire 3 torpedoes on a merchantman, but it was from too far a distance, and my figures were not well enough, so they all went amiss, and I had to dive, and I was just happy to get away alive from all that being depth charged and being hedgehogged. And yeah, then we had several encounters with airplanes, and one of them gave us quite a beating. So that was the first time since long that in the open sea a plane made me trouble, and that plane actually gave me a lot of trouble. So having fired rockets, which is one of the new technologies which you don't have at the beginning of the game, and they hit my deck, they actually enabled my guns, my anti-aircraft guns, and one of the gun crew went overboard, so I lost one crewmate. Not an officer, luckily. But so now we are one less. And since then I finished the patrol just by finishing the length, and now I am about to, we have some fuel left, and now I am just pushing eastward, northward and now eastward, in the hope that we might find some more convoy here, which is maybe not that well covered with escorts. So we still have almost 60% of fuel, and I think when we are down to 50% I'm gonna turn back home. One challenge is that the discipline is now really deteriorating because we have such a high fatigue level of -16. We can't just counter it with good food variety. And I even started to send the captain do some socializing, some playing cards with the crew again and again. But even this, at the moment, is, just delaying the inevitable. So guys, please, fingers crossed that we might run
Torpedorohr
into some convoy.
Anblasen.
There we go.
Auf Dieselmotoren wechseln.
Back to the surface already.
Aufgetaucht.
And on we go. Another 4 hours till 6 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Schultz, please man the navigation table. The captain is still playing cards.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
What quote is this, weight loss? Yeah, the guy's sailing before the mast. You mean? But you put it into quotes, so what is it? Who said that? Master and commander. Ah, okay. I don't quite remember the quote, I have to admit. Yeah, well, but it helps. It does help. So maybe I should better send the bosun playing cards with the crew, and not the, I don't know, even not the bosun. Maybe the bosun is less because he's the guy who has to enforce discipline. Yep, it's a great movie. Yeah, if you're honest, there is a lot of movies about the Age of Sail which are pretty shitty when you expect a bit of technical detail and realism. But Master and Commander, that's pretty nicely done, I would say. Not to speak about the book, which is great. Yep. Yeah, Master and Commander, it's a great movie. And of course, Das Boot. Well, in terms of naval movies, I think Das Boot will always be my number one. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Run Silent, yeah, Run Deep. Yeah, there are a few U-boat movies still on my list which I haven't yet seen. We had that discussion before here in the chat. Yeah, Josh, same for me. I didn't much. I actually started to watch the Das Boot series, but yeah, it was not for me. Just watched the first three, and then I kind of somehow, yeah, ran out of interest for it. So I never went through the complete Das Boot series. Yeah, but the movie is great, yeah. I mean, there's all these versions, and lately I watched the director's cut, which is quite long, and I also like, there is this kind of, it is also cut into a series. I mean, not this new series, Das Boot, but just the old movie, and there exists a kind of, like having it put into, I don't know, is it 4, 5, 6 parts? With extended material. That's also pretty good. Again.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Yeah, guys, give us another hydrophone check.
Tauchen auf 50 Meter.
Torpedorohr 4 gewartet.
I don't know that one. Hunt for the Bismarck. No, but there are so many good movies. And yeah, these kind of movies I actually have to watch when I'm on my own, so the family wouldn't much mind. But yeah, whenever I do have that opportunity to be at home, sometimes, well, then it's these kind of movies that I pretty much enjoy. Down we go again. Next hydrophone check. As usual, fingers crossed that we detect something.
20 Meter.
Aha. Yeah, there are a lot of good war movies.
Meter.
Oh yeah, I wanted to remind me that I turn on the pump when I'm back to the surface. Hey, great, even more people coming into the stream. That's great. Welcome, guys. Nice to have you in.
Aktuelle Tiefe 50
Yeah,
Meter.
don't worry about being observed. I don't see your names. I just see the number going up. And that's perfectly fine. So don't hesitate to just lurk, but yeah, rest assured that some comments in the chat are always welcome.
Torpedorohr 5 gewartet.
If you tell us what you think about the game, or if you play the game by yourself, what your experience is, or if you're just watching, what you think about the stream. So yeah, but don't feel pushed. If you feel like lurking, that's perfectly fine. And here we are doing another high standard hydrophone check routine, but at the moment no contacts. Yeah, relatively quiet sea, so we have a hydrophone range of more than 90 miles radius, but obviously no single propeller moving within this range. This is quite some parts, so with this we cover almost something like half the width of the strait here, of the, if you would call it, fairway.
Jawohl.
No contacts at the moment. Yeah, let's do a bit of time acceleration.
Torpedorohr 3 gewartet.
Anblasen.
Yeah, here we see Mr. Arles now opening the other valves which allow compressed
30
air
Meter.
to push the water quickly out of the ballast tank. So that's quite interesting. I mean, this, of course, we know that even from the movie, but yeah, that's quite fascinating. The idea, like,
Auf diese Motor.
not using a pump to get the water out, because this would take just too long, and having this compressed air to push the water out of the ballast tanks. Quite fascinating. I mean, there is quite a few good ideas and inventions being put into these submarines back then. And what did I say? I wanted to turn on the pump.
Pumpe einschalten.
And there we get rid of that little bit of water in the bilge, and somebody's gonna turn off the pump. So also this kind of micromanagement you don't really have to do. You could, but somebody will turn off the pump in a minute when it's clear that all the water is out of the bilge. So fuel 58%, we can still go for a bit. Let's carry on.
Koordinaten setzen.
Let's carry on eastward. Discipline, yeah, well, at least we keep that level of just below 80% of discipline. Yeah, well, I just do it now and then to clear the bilge. But yeah, often I just forget it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, did you get that massive air raid when you were just going out of the port? This is what I ran into. So at sea, the air raids, when you're far out at sea, the air raids are relatively moderate, but when you are still close to the port. But it's always just these single planes and 2 planes, or is it this kind of having a wing of 10 planes strafing you? At least for me, this situation I only had when I was close to a port. Yeah, okay, so you are. Oh, yeah. That's tough. That's tough. Yes, yep. When you have a pen, but it might be when you are still early in the game that you don't have a pen, depending on Captain Jimbo, depending on in which year you actually did start. Maybe you just don't have a pen, right? But aqua icing, that might be the best idea because they can really give you a hard time. Of course, the air defense of the port supports you, but still. Okay, yep. 1939, yep. So I guess you don't have a pen yet.
Torpedorohr 1 gewartet.
Herr Kaloy, wir sind aufgetaucht.
On we go, eastward. Chain of watch.
Herr Kaloy?
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Jawohl, ich kümmere mich darum.
Pretty bad weather by now. But yeah, improving again.
Ein paar Stunden Pause.
And by now it's just 7 knots of wind speed and fair weather. So let's do another hydrophone check.
Tauchen auf 50 Meter. Navigation besetzen.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty shallow and but I never tried it, but I think it was a hint from one of you guys in the stream quite a while ago. Somebody knew that if you stay moored, you would get kind of instant repair. So if you go straight back to the to your mooring, as soon as you are moored again, you may still being bombed, but every damage that you get from the bombs will be instantly repaired when you're moored. This can still die, okay, yeah, alright. Yeah, and Captain Jimbo, you say that a lot of depth charges fail to detonate. This is when you're in shallow water. Often the AI or the enemy puts the depth charges to detonate in depths that are much deeper than the seabed, and then they just drop onto the seabed and stay there and don't explode. That's pretty comfortable, but I'm not quite sure if it's realistic because I would more expect that they have a rough idea of how deep the water is and wouldn't put the depth too high. So shallow water should be quite a problem, and if it were done more realistically with the exploding depths of the depth charges, it would give you even more trouble. Yes, yeah.
Torpedorohr 4 gewartet.
All these depth charges lying there on the ground, and you never know when they go off. I think I already told that, but once, quite some time ago, on a mining mission, I did put myself onto the seabed, and it was, I don't know, maybe 20 meters, something like that, 20 to 30 meters depth, and then an escort was passing by and leaving a trail of depth charges on the seabed, which was just passing across my submarine, and one of them was actually dropping on my deck. So I had put my boat movelessly, silently on the seabed, and one depth charge actually landed on my deck. I think it was somewhere on the quarterdeck or the stern part of the boat. And so I was pretty much afraid what might happen when I would start moving again, but it didn't go off. It didn't go off even when I started engines later. And again. Wow, yeah, 70% of flooding. I mean, this is the good thing when you have some seabed underneath to stop your sinking, because when you have unfathomable depths underneath your keel, that's really the risk that you get damaged. I had that 2 streams ago, that I got a lot of depth charges, and I think I was even hedgehogged. But still, I was able to stop the flooding. I mean, I stopped the leaks, but still, at that point in time, I had taken so much water that the buoyancy would just not bring me back up again, and the boat was sinking and sinking, and finally got crushed. Yep.
Torpedorohr 5 gewartet.
Yeah, I always have a lot of spare parts, so what I usually do is I have
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
3 technical officers, and each of these technical officers is carrying already 5 of the spare parts, and then I have 5 more in the storage room, which means that finally I go with something like 20 spare parts usually. Okay, drowned because, yeah, the submarine was just filled with water, right, and all of them died. And yeah, air is getting short. This is, I mean, you could run short of electricity, but usually, to my experience, air is much more critical to run out of air during a mission when you're submerged.
Herr Kaloy?
Yeah, discipline is alright. Fuel 57%, so we could still carry on for a little while.
Anblasen.
And there we go, back to the surface. Who's gonna do the blowing the tanks? Mr. Grade now opening the valves to have the compressed air being pushed in. And here you see the position of the depth steers changing. All these details are nicely done.
30 Meter.
Yeah, this is why I usually try to have
Motorenwechsel.
Herr Kaloy, wir sind aufgetaucht.
this is why I always try to have one inventory slot free. Because when you have the perks, you need to have one inventory slot free, or it just wouldn't work to create this rubbish. And this time I actually created 4 pieces of rubbish and turned them into even more. I think I had even more, and turned them successfully into replacement parts, because I needed a lot of replacement parts after we had that little air raid upon us. So let's do one save. And yeah, on we go. O'clock
Torpedorohr 1 gewartet.
in the evening, but yeah, we even have the sun up at midnight at the moment.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung. Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Bestätige. Melde mich zum Dienst.
Okay, Captain, please do a bit more fraternizing with the crew.
Wie lauten Ihre Befehle, Herr Kaloy?
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Jawohl, ich kümmere mich darum.
What's the depth around here? It's 400 to 500 meters deep.
Tauchen auf.
Yeah,
50
next
Meter.
hydrophone check. Please.
Herr Kaloy?
Yeah. By the way, please allow me to be AFK just for 1 minute. Yes, I do have a be right back screen. I'm really turning professional, am I not? Yeah, I got me a bit of cheese and a roll.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter. E-Motoren wechseln.
Okay, you did it.
25 Meter.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Midnight. Midnight cheese is the best cheese, yeah.
40 Meter.
It's Gruyere, this Swiss cheese. Or also called Gruyerzer, depending on whether they're French Swiss guys or German speaking Swiss guys. I like that one very much.
Meter.
I just see I have a very tiny bit of red wine left. And this I'm gonna have now with cheese. But it's really only just a few sips. But like I used to say, in DayZ, it's better than nothing. Mr. Hinrich, the experienced radio man and hydrophone operator.
Herr Kaloy,
Anblasen. Meter.
So, by the way, I'm never sure what these green squares mean. So here we have Mr. Schulz, and he has 4 squares. 2 of them are green and 2 of them are grayed out.
Herr Kaloy, wir sind aufgetaucht.
Does it mean that his health is something like 50% down? Okay, I was never quite sure about that. So if it drops to 0, they are gonna die, I guess. But there is no possibility to heal them, right? Yep. But you can't improve the hit points as long as they are not going down, I guess, right? I think I tried it and it never worked. Yep. I guess so, yeah. Yeah, that might be, yes.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Navigation besetzen.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Wird erledigt, Herr Kaloi.
Torpedorohr 1 gewartet.
And on we go on our restless patrol.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Jawohl, ich kümmere mich darum. Tauchen auf 50 Meter.
Next hydrophone check. Yeah, I think doing the hydrophone check every 8 hours is a decent time period.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter.
Auf E-Motoren wechseln.
Okay. I don't remember that one and what the meaning of that is. So I really don't remember these games in detail. So what you say here looks like it's also pretty much storyline driven. It's not just a kind of a space shooter with battles.
40 Meter.
Ja?
50 Meter. ...45 Meter.
X-Wing Alliance, yeah. That sounds nice. I like it when you have this kind of storyline behind. Does anybody remember the Wing Commander series?
Meter.
Yeah, that was a great story-driven space shooter. Back in the days, when was it? The late 80s or something. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, we are 12 days out by now. At sea. Discipline. Yeah, at the moment we are able to keep the discipline up just below 80%. Yeah, that's a long time ago. Yeah, something like that, yeah. I mean, apart from, of course, plane simulations, I think they were one of the first games doing that. And, well, if I think back, the very first one was Elite. So nowadays we have Elite Dangerous, which is kind of a spin-off of that one, but Elite, that was a game which just had these geometrical graphics, and yeah, that was fun. But yeah, I think you could well say that Wing Commander was maybe the first game to set up space fight like that. I actually went through Wing Commander 1 and Wing Commander 2, if I remember right. but only those. I think there was also Wing Commander 3 at least.
Aufgetaucht.
I think I didn't do it. And on we go.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
Lunchtime, 2 o'clock.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Herr Kaloi?
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Jawohl, Herr Convoy.
Another 4 hours.
Wird erledigt, Herr Kaloi.
Zeit für eine Auszeit. Navigation besetzen.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Yeah, give it the next hydrophone check.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter.
Auf E-Motoren wechseln.
Yeah, in this Wing Commander series, you slipped into the role of a fighter pilot. I mean, a space fighter pilot, and you were stationed on a carrier. So there was a wing of fighters stationed on that carrier, and that carrier went through space to different scenarios or theaters of operation. And so you went out onto missions, and
40 Meter.
yeah, you were the wing man in the beginning, and I think later you would be the wing leader. And that was, I think, you back then in the game, that was the first time that there was a game where you could actually order your wingman to do things.
50 Meter.
And yeah, your wingmen, they were, really, there was a pilot roster and they were your comrades. And it was quite a bad loss if one of them died in a fight, and there was a storyline, and these
45 Meter.
other pilots of your wing were kind of involved into the storyline. Yeah. So it does ring a bell, right? And I loved it back then.
50 Meter. Aktuelle Tiefe
Yeah.
45 Meter.
And it was the Tiger's Claw. The name of that carrier. The name of that carrier was the Tiger's Claw, I think, that you were stationed on. Yeah, back then you would have needed a very powerful machine to play that game, which I didn't have at home. So sometimes my father went to do some work on Sunday in his office, and at that time he took me with him. And so he was working for a few hours on Sunday, and I could use his PC back then. And in his office he did have quite a powerful machine, also with a good graphics card, and so I could use that computer and play the game on that one. And so over many weeks I spent a lot of Sundays for a few hours in my father's office and did the playthrough of the game, actually. Quite amazing to remember back. then
Ja?
yeah, it feels a bit pointless what I'm doing here, but yeah,
Blasen.
well, that's
35
this
Meter.
realism part of the game.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
Sometimes you do hydrophone check after hydrophone check and just don't run into any enemies. So it's raining, it's relatively windy, or no, it's snowing actually. %53 of fuel, 78% of discipline. Let's go for one more 8 hours.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Jawohl.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Melde mich zum Dienst.
Uns wurde von einem verbündeten Boot ein mögliches Ziel in unserer Nähe gemeldet.
Alright, that's good. So let's first have the captain play cards again. Mr. Schultz, you take some rest.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
And now let's check the new communications. A radio man received new, less important messages from other ships. Click on the notification to open convoy inside at the square AC 614. AC 614. Let's see where this is. AC 6. Six 1-4. 6-1-4. So they must be somewhere in this area. AC 614. And what did they say about their course? Yeah, its course 90 degrees, roughly, which means that they're going like that. Away from us. Did they say anything about how many ships that were? Just a convoy. No more details. 7 knots, yeah. But pretty far away, I don't know. Let's see. When they are going that way, $10 would bring them there. Something like that. 10 hours, yep. And what about us going for 10 hours? When we go flank speed, we would do 160. Yeah, something like that. After 10 hours. So this is gonna be quite a chase, and it will burn a lot of fuel, but I think we can afford it. Let's see if we can track these guys down. And when we are there, how far are they away then? Yeah, they are just out of hydrophone range. And sooner or later it might be that they change course to turn in for Murmansk. But let's do it. Let's give it a save and see if we can track down that convoy. So that's so nice. This makes the game feel pretty interactive. Now we get that information from another German submarine. So they probably reported it back to the headquarters, and the headquarters reported it back to us, or however the structures were. So now it's 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1, 2, shit, I wanted to go flag speed. 3, 4.
Navigation besetzen.
Sorry, Mr. Grada, it's your off watch, but we still need you to go flank.
Kurs setzen.
Wird erledigt, Herr Kaloi.
5, 6, 7, 8. Another change of
Ich
watch.
benötige hier etwas Unterstützung. Jawohl, ich kümmere mich darum.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
Wird erledigt, Herr Kaloi.
9, 10.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
So shall we do a hydrophone check? Yeah, let's do it.
Tauchen auf 50
I
Meter.
think we can afford that. Maybe they're just in range to get a reading on them. So now we are on a chase. Let's just hope that we don't lose these guys.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter.
E-Motoren wechseln.
Down we go. I'm curious if we are gonna get some reading on them already.
25 Meter.
Going down to 50 meters.
Meter. 50 Meter.
Now, fingers crossed, would be great if you would just get some signal on them already to make sure where they are, but otherwise I would just can extrapolate their course and continue my interception course on them. At least I stick on a course clear south of them, just to be in an advantage position, because I would expect them to sooner or later bear down on a course to Murmansk. Yeah, if my figures are roughly correct, they might be just in range for the hydrophone. They need to be somewhere there. Distant targets. Can I hear something? No, there is nothing to hear. Yeah, but let's finish that 5 minutes check anyway. You never know. There might also be other contacts turning up. So weight loss about X-Wing aliens. I would be curious what kind of mods you actually did install. Because I have the gut feeling that this is the game that I have in the back of my mind and which I loved back then. And having it pimped a bit, graphics-wise and with mods, I could well imagine that it's still a great game.
Herr Kaloin?
Anblasen.
Okay,
35 Meter.
nothing. So what
Aktuelle Tiefe 15
if we
Meter.
continue for another 5 hours? It would bring us
Auf Dieselmotoren wechseln.
Herr Kaloy, wir sind aufgetaucht.
So 5 hours would bring us here, and 5 hours would bring them. There, right? Something like that. Yeah, let's do that. And then do another hydrophone check. Okay, yeah. Now 5 o'clock. Let's go. Let's give it another save, just in case, and continue the chase. One, 2, 3, 4,
etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Oh, I was going too slow. Not quite sure. Not quite sure. Let's do the next hydrophone check.
Tauchen auf 50 Meter.
Oh, yeah, we are well below 50% of fuel now.
Herr Kapitän?
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter. Auf E-Motoren wechseln.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful?
Schraubengeräusche. Großer Konvoi. Peilung 30 Grad.
30 degrees. Okay. So if it's the same,
50 Meter.
if it's the same convoy, they have changed their course to go in from Murmansk. They are at 30 degrees. Let's see.
45 Meter.
No, it can't be them. Can't be them. Yeah, it could. If they had changed the course already pretty early, going to the south, yeah, might be that it's them. But it would be hard to actually catch up with them
Aktuelle Tiefe 50
before they
Meter.
reach Murmansk. Let's see what we can do. Convoy 01. That's our first signal.
45 Meter.
But yeah, let's finish the hydrophone check. Might still be that there is other contacts abroad.
Ich benötige Ihre Unterstützung. Folgen Sie mir.
Bestätige.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
Aktuelle Tiefe 50 Meter.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
Yeah, these guys. Hey, Wasabi. Nice to see you. How are you doing? Yeah, as for me, I'm perfectly fine. We have just detected a convoy. So after doing fruitless one hydrophone check after another all the way up here to the west, now we finally have a convoy to chase down. So that's game-wise, and real-life-wise I'm also doing pretty fine. So I didn't stream yesterday, and I had a wonderful night having the birthday party of a very good old friend. Having met, several good friends, which I don't see regularly because, it's many years that I left my hometown. But I still have the opportunity to keep in contact with my friends from back then. And so it was great to see them again. We had a pretty good night. It was something like 3 o'clock when we went to bed. And luckily my mother, the place of my mother is just a foot walk away from that friend. So we stayed with the place of my mother, which is also a nice opportunity to visit her. So overall, I'm doing perfectly fine. I hope you are as well. Yes, it was great. It was really good fun. Yeah. Always great to have a drink with them and remembering old stories and telling the same old stories again. That's just great. So at the moment, it doesn't look like we get any more contacts.
Anblasen.
So it seems to be just this guy. Yeah, if he is heading for Murmansk, he should go something like that. And now again, let's assume that they are going this direction. They are going with 7 knots, so after 1 hour they should be there. And what about us? After 1 hour we should be there. So let's continue the chase, flank speed, and go for 1 hour, and then we do another hydrophone check to get the second data point on their position to extrapolate their course and speed. 5:15, so we are going to till 6:15. Yeah, Wasabi, I wouldn't go too much into detail about my work, but generally speaking, I'm, kind of, the engineering business.
Ich benötige hier etwas Unterstützung.
So, Mr. Schulz.
Navigation besetzen.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
Ah, no, hey.
Diesel besetzen. Navigation besetzen.
All right, let's do the second hydrophone check. Well, it's actually not the second, but the 20th or something, this mission, but the second since we actually have a contact. Hey, no, it's all right. Don't worry about asking. I mean, it's just like, it's perfectly fine that you ask, and I just would like to keep it a little bit general. Like, I sometimes have that,
Abteile Tiefe. 5 Motoren wechseln.
So here we are, hydrophoning again.
Wie lauten Ihre Befehle?
So, Mr. Hinrich, please.
Große Gruppe. Peilung 0 Grad.
Yeah, dead ahead.
25 Meter.
Yeah, so my guesstimation was alright, I think. So here we have the second data point. After 1 hour, the new position of the convoy is there, and so we can just connect it like that, and we see, yes, it's 7 miles, which we already got radioed by that other German submarine, and the course looks like that.
50 Meter.
Yeah, see if we extrapolate that. It not quite, but roughly ends up in Murmansk. So when up here that other German submarines still saw the convoy going that way. That's well possible, but probably later they just turned on that east-southeastern course.
Meter. Kurs auf diese Koordinaten setzen.
Yeah, like usual, let's just finish the hydrophone check, just in case there might be other contacts around, which we might be happy to detect. And yeah, nice. I see the number of watches going up again. So great to have you in, guys. And yeah, I just see the numbers, so don't worry. I don't see names or something. Just the number going up. And if you just want to lurk anonymously, you are very welcome. That's perfectly fine. But let me mention, nevertheless, that giving me a hi in the chat, or sharing with us what your experience with the game is, what you think about the stream, where you're from, roughly. So all these things are very welcome, but don't feel pushed, as I said. Just lurk if you want to lurk. Yeah. I pretty much love that kind of conversation. Yeah, bedtime, yeah. Maybe I'm gonna do for another half an hour or something, and then I also have to go to bed. So it was a pleasure to have you, Captain Jimbo, and looking forward to see you again. Have a good night.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
Yeah, let's see. I think I can do quite a few streams this week, because most of the week I will probably do home office, which means I can sleep a little bit longer in the morning, not having that 1 hour drive to my office. And well, I'm living in the Frankfurt area, working at Frankfurt, so if I have to be in my office, I have to be there early, because when I leave home here after something like, say, 6 o'clock, the traffic becomes terrible. So whenever I don't do home office, I usually get up at something like 5:30 and see that I quickly get myself moving, and then have a banana as breakfast in the car. And then it's something like 50 minutes drive. But if I would start 40 minutes later, it would be a 100 minutes drive. Might well be 1.5 hours then. So this is why late night streaming for me only makes sense when I can do home office in the next morning. And that's a bit different. It differs from week to week, but yeah, like next week I will probably do mainly home office, so there will be a few late night streams apart from those standard streams on Thursday and Friday and Saturday night.
20 Meter.
There we get back to the surface.
Auf Dieselmotoren wechseln.
Herr Kaloy, wir sind aufgetaucht.
Ah, so beautiful. And now, about us, going for another hour would bring us roughly here, and another hour would bring them roughly there. Yeah, that brings me too close. Maybe let's put ourselves more on a parallel course. If we do it like that, what would be the distance? Still pretty close. But yeah, let's go on for 1 hour. Yes, yeah, well, if I am starting too late and I get into the rush hour, then it would be something like 1.5 hours of drive to my office to work, yeah. But when I am early enough, it's just 50 minutes. So 20 past. Yeah, meanwhile, I'm quite alright with that long drive to work because, yeah, since there is Spotify, well, I spend something like 20 minutes of listening to a news channel on the radio, and then I switch to some, podcasts and or audiobooks. So this is really something. So like, for example, I always wanted to read something of Oscar Wilde, actually, but I just never got the time, and so now I just heard a few audiobooks of Oscar Wilde. And I would never have taken the time to read them at home, but so when I'm driving in the car, and Spotify makes it possible. That's just great. Let's confirm. Yeah, let's just make sure whether our data reckoning here is correct. And let's give it one more little hydrophone check.
Herr Kaloy?
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter. Motoren wechseln.
Schraubengeräusche. Große Gruppe. Peilung 345 Grad.
Yeah, there they are again.
25 Meter.
All right. Next data point.
Meter.
Yeah, maybe I should get a bit more distance in between them and us, because since they tend to have radar by now,
50
they
Meter.
might still detect me when I get too close, even though I'm still far out of visible range. What's the depth around here? 300 to 400 meters still. So I think I would prefer to go on a course like that.
Auf diese Koordinaten setzen.
And them
Kümmere mich darum.
going for another 4, 5, 6, 7 miles. And us another something like 16 miles, like
50
that.
Meter.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
Yeah, let's accelerate it a bit, but nevertheless take the 5 minutes and check thoroughly.
Anblasen. Meter. Aktuelle Tiefe 10 Meter.
There we are.
Auf Dieselmotoren wechseln.
Sunlight has us back.
Herr Kaloi, wir sind aufgetaucht.
1 hour. Okay, there is radar contacts. Yeah, that might be the escorts, which are ahead of the bulk. So when we are behind that convoy, when we pick up a signal, a hydrophone signal, this is actually from those ships which are trailing behind. So this actually explains when this does not 100% coincide.
Torpedorohr 1 gewartet.
So I think we don't have to dive for the hydrophone check because the radar gives us a good guesstimation that they are somewhere there. And if we continue our dead reckoning here, another 7 would bring them there and us Yeah, the radar range is enormous. 15 miles of radar detection range. The question is what their range actually is detecting us. This is something that I'm very unclear about. I mean, I guess for us it's easier to detect their radar than for them to detect us with their radar. So probably they might still be well out of range of detecting us when we already detect them. Let's go like that for now. And let's give it another save. Most important thing is that we catch up with them before they reach port.
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
They're just at the edge of our radar detection range. Yeah, I think this is alright how I do it, so keep them at bay for a bit. And now turn in on them. Another 7 miles, and for us now let's see that we get ahead of them.
Kurs setzen.
Torpedorohr 5 gewartet.
Kurs auf diese Koordinaten setzen.
Natürlich, Herr Kaloy.
Whoa, we burn a lot of fuel like that, of course. We are down to 46% of fuel. But I think the milk cow is in position, is it? No, not yet. Still takes 5 days. One more hour to go.
Kapitän?
Ich erwarte Ihre Befehle.
Ich könnte etwas Hilfe gebrauchen.
So I don't know why the radar detection range has been reduced. Honey, yes, I like honey. Very much, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, um, I don't eat much honey, but we usually have a bit of honey here. And yeah, I used to buy it from, how do you call the guy who keeps the bees? Honeycomber, or what's the English term for that guy who keeps bees? So what I want to say is I usually wouldn't buy honey from the supermarket because yeah, I don't quite like them. Beekeeper, yeah, okay. But I try to get it directly from a beekeeper, and yeah, you usually have some beekeepers around somewhere. All right.
Wie lauten Ihre Befehle, Herr Kaloy?
So maybe this is now the right point in time to turn in on them. They are continuing with their 7 miles. So us, we could go in like that.
Kurs setzen.
Herr Kapitän?
Right. Yeah, we are getting into a position right in front of them. Well, very wise saying.
Kurs auf diese Koordinaten setzen.
Ja?
Yeah, maybe this is now the right point in time to dive. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go for periscope depth.
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
A bit random, yeah, no problem.
Tauchen auf 50 Meter.
Yeah, let's give it a hydrophone check now that we are diving anyway. See this. Nice.
Aktuelle Tiefe 5 Meter.
E-Motorenwechsel.
So we already have eyes on the smoke columns of these guys.
25 Meter.
Meter. Schraubengeräusche. Große Gruppe. Peilung 260 Grad. 50 Meter.
Yeah, now we sailed once around. So this is very, very consistent. So now we are listening to the first ships of the convoy, and coming from behind them we listen to the last ships of the convoy, and this actually makes for the delta that we have here.
Aktuelle Tiefe 50 Meter.
All right, come on, let's finish the hydrophone check and let's go for
Auf Seerohrtiefe.
periscope depth. Right now.
Meter.
So now I'm curious if I would overshoot and broach the surface. I think I would. Coming from 50 meters to periscope depth. But it just wouldn't make a difference because there is no enemies in visible range. See now what happens. Yeah. So this is when you come from being deep down and go to periscope depth. You just can't get it precisely. This is something that would be very bad if enemy ships would be in visible range.
Große Gruppe. Peilung 260 Grad.
That sounds a bit like Douglas Adams. What you say about a bread with buttered bread and the cat. So now I want to have the captain add the hydrophone. Not the hydrophone, the periscope, I mean.
Schraubengeräusche. Große Gruppe. 260 Grad.
Captain's taking a seat at the periscope.
Ja.
Run it out, please. That's them. I'm curious what this convoy will look like. So we could run out the snorkel. Let's do that for now.
Schnorchel ausfahren.
Yeah, we are still so far away that I don't think that they would spot our little smoke column. Yeah, wasabi. Yeah, I did actually. So it was a pleasure to have you in. And you're completely right, I'm just gonna finish this one any minute. So have a good night, and maybe see you again tomorrow. Bye bye, wasabi. Conditions, yeah, it's 7 knots. That's not too stormy. Yeah, wasabi's right. It's also bedtime for me. Yeah, we had a nice 3-hour stream, and yeah, let's give it a save once. And yeah, so great. That means next time, next stream, there should be action. Next step would be infiltrating that convoy. So I hope you enjoyed that stream of leisurely sailing the Arctic Sea. And yeah, next stream will be more action again, definitely. So guys, it was a pleasure. Thanks for joining. Aqua icing. Have a good night. Captain Jimbo, I think he's already out. Weight loss, was a pleasure to have you. Not wet, just cold. I'm pretty sure that you're still there. So a good night to you just as well. Josh, if you're still there, good night for you just as well. So guys, have a good night and see you. Maybe, I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna stream tomorrow, so would be nice if you were in again. Bye bye.